This is Talk is Sheep, a podcast by the Wild Sheep Society of British Columbia. Come along as we take conversations that matter to you into the high alpine.
Good evening, sir. How are you?
That was weird. It was really, really weird.
Well, this is a weird podcast, man.
It really is. Greg Rensmag and I kind of took the reins on this one and interviewed you. A lot of people have been asking to hear a little bit more about the guy behind Wild Sheep Society BC, the CEO, the president, well, past president now, director, Jurassic Classic organizer, and so we got to kind of dig into a little bit about what makes Kyle Stelter tick, and the bunch of other fun stuff there. Not necessarily what makes you tick, because that's a whole other conversation. But yeah, it was pretty fun. What'd you think of it?
Oh, it's fun. It's always neat to be the guest, and in some ways it's easier. I guess some ways it's more difficult. But no, it's fun. It's fun to do it with you and Greg. Obviously good friends with both you guys, and so it's fun. And then of course I get to look like an ass, talk about my stupidest moment in the field. So of course, but you know what? I'm always screwing up anyway, so I'm used to telling dumb stories about myself. So,
do you notice one of the things that everybody has in common though, with one of the dumbest things they do in the field? They always involve a bear.
It's funny how that works.
They always involve a bear. Yeah, it was good. Got to see different side of you. Like I knew a lot of this stuff, but I'm sure a lot of our listeners are going to go, well, that's kind of cool. And it was a great expose, right? The society is pretty bloody transparent, and this is just another one aspect of what we like to show our members. Where does your money go, and what the hell does the CEO do, and why did you create the position? So I thought it was pretty cool, and it's going to open up a lot of doors and a lot of eyes. So cool.
Yeah, I think that's a big part of it is having people understand what's involved and why I'm in that paid position. And I've had questions about that. Our directors have had questions about that, and people don't really get to see what's behind it. But as you'll hear in the podcast, is that to grow and mature as an organization, if we want to carry out our mission and put more sheep on the mountains, we do need a little bit more support than what our volunteers can give us. So, yeah, I think that this podcast sheds a bit of light on that. And but like anything else, Steve, if anyone has any questions, my door's open. Give me a call. I'm more than happy to go through it and try and explain why we do what we do. And the one thing about it is me going into this paid role involved all the directors and a lot of time and consideration. It wasn't taken lightly. It wasn't like, oh, we just need to create a position for somebody. That was not the case. This was an opportunity that we felt that we could really grow our conservation footprint when it came to wild sheep in the province.
And it's been almost a year now, and we get into exactly what growing our footprint looks like, and our listeners will have to just listen to hear what kind of growth we've received in the last year, if any, right? I think they'll be pleasantly surprised. So speaking of growth, what do we have going on?
Yeah, so we, at the Jurassic Classic, we wrapped up a bunch of our winners, our raffles. We drew a ton of those. So if anyone's wondering who won what, check out our website. There's all the winners are on our website now. And but we launched 4 new raffles at the Jurassic, and just some great conservation support opportunities there. So, of course, the Big Bore Rifle Series continues. Dawn and Gary step up again with a Wicked 7 SOM, custom-built Gary Flack, just a beautiful rifle. We've got the Jurassic Rifle, full donation that's a Tika and a Steiner Optics donation, and I think that's in the 7 Rem Mag. A beautiful rifle there, full setup. And then we also have, thanks to our conservation partner, Sitka gear. We've got a great Sitka package, and Vortex has stepped up in coordination with Westside Stores. Jason there is supporting us, and just a great raffle package with that as well. So 4 great opportunities, and great opportunity to support conservation, put wild sheep on the landscape, and again, some kick butt prizes, 4 really solid packages, anywhere from $5,000 to $10,000 in prize package. So.
Oh, totally. And without our sponsors and our donors and our members, we can't continue to put the amount of money and onto the ground as we have been. And speaking of that, Bull River, we got that burn coming up, right? And there's a window where people are not supposed to be in the area, right? It was September 29th, so today, through the 19th or 9th.
Yeah, I can't remember the end date, but you're right. It starts today. And so the regional biologist reached out to us and just said, hey, can you share this? We just don't want people in the burn area when we're burning. It's in the Bull Mountain area. So if you see burning and it's there's signs saying you to stay out, they ask that you respect it. It's only during the burn. Once the burn is done, you can go back in the area. So this is the only time of year we can get this work done, right? So it's either do it now or don't do it. And of course, this is really important habitat restoration work for wild sheep. So they're just asking, be respectful, stay out of the area while the burn's happening. I think they're hoping late this week. I talked to Ariana on the phone on the weekend, and I think late this week they got a couple days that they're going to try and do the burn. So yeah, stay out of their way, and let's do what we can to support mountain species and wild sheep.
Yeah, I did see on a couple of the forums, though, that there were some questions regarding how fast the feed's going to return. Some people were concerned that the burn being done this late in the year would potentially affect the ungulates and the sheep and the et cetera winter food, and that's not the case. I've seen in the forest fires up here in the interior, feed showing up within a week, 2 weeks after a burn has gone through. So there's no danger of these animals going hungry in this small area. So no need to worry there. But yeah, pay attention for when this burn is going on. You'll see the smoke, you'll see the signs, and you'll likely see the crews. So yeah, more great work on the ground. So
yeah, awesome. So yeah, happy to be part of that project and doing some more good work for wild sheep in Region 4 where we know they need it. So.
Oh, there's one last thing. Speaking of regional biologists, our friend Bill Jex did send out that request for when you're returning, hopefully successful with a sheep, to try and bring the nasal cavity in intact, still on the skull, so they can do some swabbing for MOV and other diseases. So yeah, simple request if you can try and remember to do that. There's more information on our social media pages there of what they're looking for and exactly why. So yeah, dig into that a little bit, but try and remember that.
Yeah, well said, Steve. So with that, we're going to go off to episode 89 with me. Yeah. Episode 89.
I'm not editing that. That's just too great.
Episode 89 with Kyle Stelter, CEO. So Greg Rensmeg's our host and Steve, and it's a bit of a flip. Something cool, something different, and apologize if I get a little windy, as I tend to, but yeah, just a huge shout out to our members and our volunteers and all our leadership that are doing great work for conservation. So enjoy episode 89.
Across Canada and throughout the world, if you come across a campfire in the woods, on a mountaintop, or next to a river, you'll find warm company and friendly people gathered around. Regardless of your lifestyle or place you call home, we invite you to learn more about what it means to be a hunter in the modern era. If you love the outdoors, care about where your food comes from, and are concerned for the future of wildlife and the environments that they need to survive, pull up a seat. We have a story to tell. Welcome to our campfire.
Hey, so here we are, Talk is Sheep. We're going to do a little bit something different today and be interviewing Mr. Kyle Stelter. So I'll be taking his role. So, Kyle, how's it going?
Awesome, buddy. It's good to be on here. It's good to have you in the driver's seat, and I hope I'm half as good a guest as the guests that we have on all the time. It's going to be weird, but glad you're doing it, man.
Yeah, a little something different.
This is so weird. Yeah. It really is weird. It's like a parallel universe Brady Bunch type thing. It's weird.
Well, we're not going to win any awards for being good looking, so might as well talk over a microphone here.
Face for radio.
So let's do this how you normally lead it off, Kyle. Let's go with who are you? Where are you from? Give us a little background on who's Kyle Stelter.
Yeah, right on, man. Well, born and bred in Southern Alberta, grew up on a farm in the middle of nowhere, and that's where it all began for me. I grew up in as remote areas you could get, and fun for me wasn't like it is today with iPads and all that sort of stuff. It was getting out and being in nature, and just I'd walk out my front door, and there'd be rattlesnakes and coyotes and mule deer and whitetail, and we talk about biodiversity in Southern Alberta. That, especially when I was growing up, it was just a hot spot. There was everything around. You could see elk, moose, you just name it. So, it's pretty hard not to fall in love with it. I grew up in a family of hunters that really respected the land, and of course they made their living off it. My father and grandfather were ranchers and farmers, so it all began there. Very, very, very humble and very simple beginnings, and so I just grew up loving wildlife and had a keen respect for, I guess, conservation and animals, probably more so domestic animals. Being ranchers, the most important thing on our ranch was cows and horses. And Christmas Day, nobody ate until the cows ate. Once the cows ate, then we could get back to the house and have Christmas breakfast. But first thing was to get the cows fed and make sure they were bedded and happy, and then we could go from there. So yeah, that's where I grew up. Came to the coast a long time ago now, in 1997 for work, and wasn't really into mountain hunting or any of that stuff. I'd never really done it. And then kind of got hooked into this circle of lunatics that love the mountains and wildlife, and the rest is history. Once I tasted it once, I was like, oh yeah. So that's kind of where it came from. And yeah, it's been an interesting evolution, and just loving every minute of it.
So when you say you got sucked into the world of lunatics and the mountains, do you have one specific thing that was your moment? Like, oh, this is where I want to be?
Yeah, and there's that Jack O'Connor quote, which I love to butcher every single time, but it's the no halfway, right? And it was my first trip into the mountains. It was a sheep hunt, and I'd been invited to tag along on this experience, and halfway up the mountain, and literally 30 pounds overweight with gear that I shouldn't have had. I literally had a 3-pound sweater with me, and just dying my way up the mountain, and just absolutely trashed. Only got halfway where we wanted to go because I was so, tired beyond belief. And as we kind of made our camp that night and got some food in our belly and looked around at the wilderness, and I'm like, holy crap, this is what I want to do. I love this. And just hooked me. And it was, and it really was 50-50. I was like, this could go either way. I was like, 20 minutes earlier, I was ready to call it quits, head back to the lake and call the airplane. But, you get some food in your belly, you rejuvenate, and, it didn't hurt that we were successful and had a couple of sheep on the ground later that trip, and just never looked back. I knew that every single year that I could be in the mountains, I would make every effort to do it. And it was about that time that I got introduced to the society and the good people in it. And we talk about our wild sheep family, and so it's kind of twofold. This has become a way of life for me. In terms of being in the mountains, but then when we're out of the mountains, I get to live it year round because we work with the society and all the great people associated with it. Our board of directors, our members, and everyone that makes this whole wild sheep world go around. And I wouldn't change it for the world because it truly does feel like a family to me.
Awesome. Yeah, we're glad you're part of the family. That's for sure.
Me too, man.
So was that after that sheep hunt? Is that when you decided to step up in the conservation world and join the society, or were you a member before that?
I was a member before that. So we always joke, my sheep hunting partner bought me a membership to the society, and he always jokes it's the best investment he ever made. But that first year I went to the sheep show. It was in Kelowna. That was the first year I went. It was in Kelowna at the time. So I think it was 2012, somewhere in there. And right away, I walked into it. So my buddy couldn't go. He ended up having to work. He couldn't make it. So I showed up cold. I didn't know anyone. kind of knew a couple guys from like hunting BC. That was it. And so walk in there, and I have to admit I was pretty intimidated. Drove up to Kelowna on my own, didn't know a soul, and walked in the room, and it was like I walked into a room full of friends, people I've known my entire life. And it truly, and I hadn't been on my first sheep hunt at that point. And it was truly, kind of evolutionary for me just to feel so at home with this group of people. Everyone super inclusive. And, sheep hunters tend to get a bit of a bad rap that, a little bit elitist or a little bit of cliquey. And, I guess maybe there is a little bit of that because of what we do. It's a bit, unique and challenging. And of course, there's cost involved to do it, comfortably. So I guess I kind of get that reputation. But I'll tell you, it's an inclusive group. And I walked in that room and I didn't feel there was any cliques. Everyone was so welcoming and kind and just right away I was like, yeah, this is the kind of people I want to associate with, and haven't looked back since. So obviously wasn't involved in any level at that point, but at the time I think it was Rob Kopecky was the president, and I think he was newly elected. And I went up to Rob, and of course, everybody's so approachable, including the president, which, I'm not used to that either. And I just said to Rob, hey, anything I could do, I'd love to be part of this. And you guys kill this. It's crushing it. I love it. And anything I could do to help. And Rob was super welcoming, but nothing really came of it at that point. And then a few years later, kind of happenstance way of getting involved, but I got involved through the Jurassic Classic. So that was kind of my first involvement with the wild sheep world. And, we were involved got involved with Trevor Carruthers and Wild Sheep BC and in setting up the Jurassic. And then that was kind of a evolutionary moment for me in the wild sheep world. And that's when I was like, okay, I want to do more and get involved, and put my name forth for the board. And got elected. I actually don't think I got elected. There's a story there we can talk about some other time if you want. But I did get on the board. So, but super grateful to be part of it. So,
awesome stuff. So, with your previous career, you seem to have a lot of time kind of locked up when you're abroad. Do you think that allowed you to dive into your role more? Because you've been someone that we've all kind of looked up to, and you've been a mentor, and you've right the ship, so to speak, when it comes to the society. You've carried it a long way. You're a humble guy. You don't like the accolades, but I can see it in your face right now. But you did. During even the pandemic, you were locked up in your little hotel room on the other side of the country, and I'm sure that allowed you a substantial amount more time to keep yourself busy and dive into the conservation world.
Yeah, well, professionally, as many of you know, I was an airline pilot, and there's only so much time you can be in the cockpit. You're only allowed so many hours a month, and really works out. You can only do basically 1,000 hours a year, so 80 hours a month. But you're gone all the time doing that stuff. So, you maybe do a 10-hour flight, but then you have a day or two of downtime sitting there in the hotel. And so it did give me a ton of opportunity to get involved in the wild sheep world. And so, yeah, it was kind of a unique opportunity that I kind of had a part-time job in some respects. And, this was my passion. It's what I love to do. And so, yeah, it allowed me to get more involved. And, but the true story is that you have to look at our leadership through the Wild Sheep Society of BC. When I came on the scene, guys like Chris Barker, Mike Southern, David Heitzman, Bill Pastrick, Mike Schroeder, the list goes on, and no disrespect to anyone I haven't mentioned there. But these guys have been doing it for 25 years, man. They've been so involved and so passionate, and I came in and I was fired up. I was hungry. I was excited about what we were doing and loved, the world we were in and the great work the society was doing. And hats off to them, because they allowed a guy like me to step up, and they didn't know me. They're just like, yeah, okay, and so that's a true testament to the leadership of the society, that over the years, the society's never been afraid to try things. Hey, do we get it right every time? No. Do we make mistakes? Yes. But are we afraid to try things? And when we make mistakes, we admit it, we move forward. And, I have to give our leadership a lot of credit for allowing that opportunity. One of the first things I did, I came on involved with the communications committee, and we redid the logo. And they're all like, "You're here for a year and you want a new logo?" And I'm like, "Yeah, but everyone says the logo's tired and we need to redo it." And it worked out. Everyone seemed happy, but afterwards they were all like, 3 of them came to me and they said, when you said that, we're just shaking our head. They're like, "Oh, this is going to be interesting," But it worked out. Take some chances, and yeah, I'm sure there's still guys that hate me because we got rid of the old logo. But yeah, no. And so my point is that hats off to our leadership through the society of being bold, taking chances, and not being afraid to venture out there. And I think that's one of the keys to our success, that, we listen to our members, we try and pivot and listen to our membership and do the things they want us to do. And I think it's having a huge impact.
Absolutely. Now, is that something you kind of pride yourself in, is being an open door for people to get a hold of you? I know even for myself, before I joined the society, I had sent you I don't know if you remember this, but our first communication was me sending you a random message on Facebook saying, "Hey, why don't you guys start a calendar?" And then you just asked for my phone number, called me and said, "I guess you're going to build me a calendar," kind of deal. So is that something you kind of, you pride yourself in, as being an open book and listening to your membership and getting that ball going?
Well, I guess the thing is, one thing is, don't ever call up with an idea unless you're ready to run with it, because that's the thing, right? And that happened to me when I first joined. Like I said, the leadership said, "Yeah, okay, you got these ideas, go with it." And I think take some chances, but be smart about it, calculated. And so in terms of priding myself, I wouldn't go that far, Greg. But what I will say is that our group is highly motivated, and that's one of the things that I've noticed in the society from when I joined is, when I first joined a number of years ago, there was a handful of people that did tons of work, but it was just a couple of people, and it was and there was lots of people contributing, but 2 or 3 people were doing a ton of heavy lifting. And the one thing I look around now and I see every single day is guys like you and Steve, and just the list goes on and on and on of the directors, but also our volunteers. Everyone's out there. And so now, instead of 2 or 3 guys giving it their all, we've got 20, 30, 40 people giving it their all, and the support of our membership. And that's the stuff, because it doesn't matter how many Kyles we have or how many, Gregs we have. If we only have one of them, there's only so much we can do. But if you got 40 people doing that, or 50 people, that's the stuff that moves needles. And that's what I've seen. And they're highly capable people. The people that are working, volunteering, giving their time, talent, and treasure to the society, they're giving their best. And it's incredible what people are doing. And it's humbling to me when I look around and see all the people that care as much as I do and working as hard as I am to carry out our mission. It's absolutely humbling, and I love it. Love it.
Awesome. So I'm going to give you a little bit of a loaded question here. So,
lovely.
You haven't, in reality, you haven't been doing this that long, but you've stepped up, and you're carrying a lot of what we do. But even when you look at our membership numbers, since you've been a part of the society, we've more than doubled, at least, probably getting close to nearly tripled. What do you think contributed to that the most in your time?
Yeah, well, this number sticks with me, Greg. So one of the first things when I joined the board, Mike Shorter came to me and says, "What do you want to do?" And I said, Mike, I don't know what I want to do. I just want to help sheep." And he goes, "Okay, you're going to do membership." And I'm like, "Okay, great. I'm going to do membership." So I thought, I'll be part of a committee, and I'll be like this little cog in this wheel, this giant wheel, and it'll be turning, and I'll just do my little part, right? And it's like, and he's like, "Okay, you're membership chair now, so go do your thing." And I'm like, "What?" I'm like, "I can't be a chair because I don't know what I don't know." And he goes, No, you'll figure it out." And so the first thing I did is I jumped into our membership database, and we had 340 members. That was the number when I joined. I'll never forget it. And I'm like, I thought the society was huge. I thought there was tens of thousands of members probably. And so, yeah, we have grown it. And again, I think we have such a dedicated core of leadership team. So our board of directors, but also our members. Our members truly care. And that's the one thing that first sheep show that I talked about that I went to, I walked in that room and everyone was mission focused. They loved the resource. They loved to go out and recreate and be part of it and experience the mountains. And I think with that passion, it's hard to go wrong. And if you can just channel it a little bit, you can't help but explode because people are so passionate about it. And, that's one thing I think about. Like you can cite all these different organizations that have tens of thousands of members, but really do they care about the mission? If you ask someone, what is your mission? Would they even know what their mission is? And our members know our mission. And so, I think we're a highly motivated group, and I think it goes right from the very top, from our board of directors, right to the newest member. We get people that'll walk in and just purchase a life membership that we've never even heard of, and they just said, we love what you're doing. We love wild sheep. We love, our conservation, what we're doing for conservation. So it's pretty easy to be part of that team, to be honest with you. It's pretty. How can you go wrong when you have somebody that's so dedicated and in support of what you're doing, right? So you'd have to be an idiot to screw it up.
Now, do you think the membership growth and seeing what's going on with BC contributed to helping you move south of the border there and join the foundation? Because you're their chair right now for membership as well, aren't you not?
Yeah, I do have the fortune of serving on the Wild Sheep Foundation board of directors. I joined them about 3 years ago. I am their membership chair. I also serve in the vice chair role and on quite a few different committees with them. And, what was the biggest factor? I guess, Chris Barker's always been one of my biggest advocates. Chris, when I joined the board, he right away pulled me under his wing, and Chris has always, advocated for me and encouraged me and believed in me, to be frank. And Chris was serving on the foundation's board of directors. We've had the fortune of some of the foundation's leadership. Gray Thornton's been up to the Jurassic Classic and a number of other directors, and they kind of seen what we're doing in BC here. So, I think Chris advocating for me is part of it. But I also think, they look at what we're doing as an organization and they see the great work that the society's doing. And, I happen to be involved with that. And I don't take that for granted. I think that that's part of it. I think that we have, we do incredible work here in British Columbia, and I think other people have noticed that. And, so I happen to be lucky because I was involved with that. But, I wouldn't say so much it was anything that I'd done, just good people looking out for me, I guess. So,
yeah. To speak on the getting noticed, is kind of nice when we were down in Reno there, and seemed almost daily you'd meet someone new and they would compliment on what's happening up in BC. Seems like everybody's paying attention, seeing what we're doing up here and putting boots on the ground and making things happen. So,
yeah, absolutely, Reagan. And that's, it's hard not to get inspired. And I know you two are no different, that you guys are just as passionate as I. You wake up in the morning and you got that fire in your belly that you just want to do good things for the resource, and it's pretty cool. Pretty cool to be part of this team for sure.
Yeah, definitely just takes one person to inspire the next person to inspire the next person. It just snowballs, and you can see that, right? Every Sheep Society member I've talked to, I'd say 50% of them have never hunted sheep. Right, like myself included, but I'm looking at a wall full. I'm exaggerating a little bit, but at least 4 or 5 different plaques of life memberships, and I've never hunted a sheep because the inspiration there. And I know it goes across the wild sheep community. It's not just our society, but you see it in Alberta, and you see it heck, the Midwest. Midwest doesn't even have a single sheep in their area, yet they have a chapter that's absolutely as passionate as we are. right? It's crazy to see, and I don't know what it is about it. I've belonged to a lot of other organizations, but I've never seen the passion that there is in the wild sheep community. So pretty cool to be a part of.
Yeah, definitely. So let's we fast forward a few years here, Kyle, and your job opportunities are moving you across the world, and we didn't want to let you go. So say last fall you dove into a whole new world of being the CEO of the Wild Sheep Society. What's that been like now that it's full time? I know that's kind of a big question, but it's full time. This is what you do. It's we'd love to say it's a 9 to 5 for you, but you're 24/7, and your phone's always on unless you're out of service, kind of deal. Has it been more chaotic than you expected, or has it been kind of what you were looking forward to?
100%. It's exceeded my wildest expectations by far. It's different. It is different. Like, when you're waking up in the morning, it's a job. It's, as a volunteer, you always have the option of taking the day off, or deferring it to next week. And, this job now is a job. So, it's changed in that regard. But it's actually more rewarding than I thought, because the thing is, I can now focus all my capacity, all my energy, all my time on doing the job that I'm super keen, passionate about. And so it has changed. It's different, but in a good way. So yeah, it's been positive. I'm enjoying it. It's we're coming up on a year now. Next month it'll be 1 year of having done it. So seeing the cycle and just really exciting to see how things are evolving, how things are changing, how we continue to carry out our mission to grow what we're doing in terms of conservation on the landscape. And I guess that's the thing is, professionally before I was flying airplanes. So, you got from A to B, you walk off that airplane, you were done. You just go to the hotel and I guess do sheep work. But the thing is now I feel like, I am very mission driven. I wake up every morning with, doing, putting more wild sheep on the mountain. That's the mandate. And you wake up every morning with that mandate, and it's pretty cool, pretty exciting. So
yeah. So now, does it ever get a little bit weird? So you're doing this all day during the day, but I'm sure I'm not the only one get that message from you. You got a second to talk, and then you got to wait for us to be off the clock, and you're waiting until dinner time for someone to call you back every day and dragging out your hours. Does that get a little bit tiresome sometimes? Let's be honest here.
It actually makes it really interesting. And I have to say, if it wasn't for a very, very supportive family, my wife is incredible. It's insane how reasonable she is with this. If you didn't have the right fit, it would be a freaking nightmare. It would be a train wreck. But, it's interesting. Today I had a Zoom call. I thought it'd be done at 5:00. Well, it was 5:40. And then I finished up the Zoom. I get a text, and I walk out, and I'm like, dinner's ready. So I'm already late for dinner. Sit down for dinner, and as I'm sit down, I get a text. Can we chat about the meeting? And I'm like, can I have 10 minutes? And then, and here we are at 7:00 doing our Zoom our podcast. So, Melanie's super supportive. She believes in she's a life member of the Wild Sheep Society, life member of the Wild Sheep Foundation. She's a Monarch member. She believes in our mission. And she's not maybe as passionate about the resource that I am, but she is respectful of, my desire and what I want to do and how I want to be involved with the wild sheep world. And it's been awesome. So, I have to say that, if I didn't have the support of my family, it'd be a different story. We'd be having a different conversation, but I do have their support. And there are times where there's a lot of balancing, right? Trying to make everything work, but there are benefits too, right? So, you just take the time when you can get it, and you have to realize you're going to be flexible. And when I went into this position, it was eyes wide open. I knew 100% that, and the thing is, I'm in a paid position. You guys are volunteers. So to me, you guys are the true heroes here. And I have to be flexible in my time. I'm working for you guys. I work for the board. I work for our membership. And I think if you don't have that mentality, you probably shouldn't be in that job. I think if you go in thinking that you have this entitlement to your time and that sort of stuff, you're probably in the wrong profession. You probably should go to get a 9-to-5 job or get a union job or something like that. So certainly comes with the territory. And to be honest, no, I don't get tired of it. There are some times where I'm just not available or whatever, and that's fine. But I think, doing this thing, you got to be pretty flexible. Otherwise, it's not going to work.
Yeah, for sure.
So
sorry, that was really long.
It's all good.
I want to know, like, we jumped right into the role of the CEO. As your role you went right from president to CEO, and we never really talked about the evolution of why the society felt the need to move to a CEO position. Can you talk about that for a little bit?
Yeah, you bet, Steve. So, that's one thing. Right when I joined the society, we kind of were looking for some paid leadership. We felt that, we're doing some great work here, but our volunteers are limited in capacity. There's only so much you can do as a volunteer. Everyone's got day jobs, they got families, they got responsibilities, and we're looking for somebody to take on that sort of that paid position. And so we actually recruited an executive director, which is what I'm doing. I'm, a glorified executive director. The title is synonymous CEO or exec director. We brought someone in that position, and the corporate culture was not a great fit for that role for the individual we hired. And it became pretty clear, really, really obvious very soon that this was not going to work out. So we amicably parted ways. And then, we've always kind of been on the lookout for someone to take over that leadership role. So, we kind of learned from that first mistake that, we put someone in that exec role that they should have had, growing into that role perhaps, or it was somebody that we knew would be a great fit. So we hired 2 executive assistants over that time with kind of the goal of maybe we could move them to exec director role. And one of them was Sabrina, and Sabrina did a great job, but she ended up, she had a whole profession on the side as a surveyor, and she decided to go back to that. And then we brought Mike Survey in, and Mike wasn't quite ready to move into that role. And so with me, what happened was, we've been talking about this before, like, hey, it would be great if you could do this for a living. Well, I did have my day job. It was, I was an airline pilot, and, the pay was good. But then by happenstance, I ended up losing my job due to, they basically closed the base in Vancouver. And I was in a position where if I wanted to keep a job, I would have to move overseas. And if I was going to do that, I would have to just step back I was the president at the time, and I would just have to step back. I was going to be moving to the other side of the world. So at that point, I was like, you know what? I kind of looked at options around, and I'd had discussions with our senior leadership in the society, and they'd said, hey, would you look at moving into an exec director or a CEO role with the society? And I said, I don't know. I can look at it. So, we kind of sat down and talked about it seriously. And there's no question that this is my passion, right? I love what I'm doing. I love Wild Sheep. I love our community. I love our family, all the stuff. I was involved with the foundation, and I didn't want to give any of it up. And so, basically I sat down with them and we talked about options. Now, the downside was the financial side. Obviously, I was having to take a pretty significant pay cut. But at the end of the day, we sat down, we figured it out. And, we had some pretty deep discussions as a family. And Melanie and I sat down and we said, yeah, we can make this work. Yeah, it's I was fortunate enough to put some money away during my time as a pilot. And I also got a buyout, so that helped offset things. And so I kind of came up with a proposal for the society and pitched it to the board of directors. So yeah, it's it's different. I'm certainly not going to gonna retire with the big boat and a cottage somewhere. But I tell you, I wake up every morning and I love what I'm doing, because I used to be an airline pilot. I didn't wake up every morning and go, oh, I love my job, I can't wait to get in the airplane. But I do that here. So yeah, it's been a trade-off, but it's been a good one, and I've enjoyed every minute of it for sure.
Yeah, there's something to be said about waking up and wanting to do what you do for a living. It's worth more than some money sometimes. Obviously, there's money's good, but happiness is a little more important, and keeping the family grounded and everything's ideal. I'm sure you get to spend a lot more time at home now, and it's got to keep things better at the homestead.
Yeah, absolutely. In terms of quality of life, there's no comparison, right?
I can vouch as somebody who worked closely with you for a couple of years before you took this job. I'd be texting you going, okay, you good for a call? Yeah, just taxiing or just landing or can't talk right now in the air. Where the hell are you? It was either Alaska or Chicago, New York, or Mexico occasionally, Hong Kong often. It was just nuts. I couldn't imagine keeping that type of schedule. It was tough enough to try and stay in contact on the phone. I could only imagine what it was like actually living it, and then having a wife and a couple of kids thrown into the mix. So yeah, Monday to Friday as much as possible during regular daylight hours in the Pacific time zone is much easier to keep track of you. So pretty selfish that way, but that's why I like it.
Yeah, for sure.
I don't really know if you can even kind of give us a general overview of an average day for your CEO, but I want to hear what you can kind of say about your average day, because you have a lot of not average days, meetings and going to different places and trying to get sponsors and whatnot. So.
Yeah, good question, Greg. And it's with regards to what I do, it literally changes day to day. You wake up with a plan of where it's going to go, and then you get that first email, and it's like, oh yeah, okay, that's not happening today, right? But one of the things that I was brought in to do was to provide some leadership in terms of strategy, long term where we're going, and find a way to get us there. And so to help grow our conservation footprint, to carry out our mission. So, that's a lot of what I'm doing. It's not always the minutia, and of course that happens too, right? You get a small little thing you got to deal with that, is not going to really change anything, but it really needs to be dealt with. But, really trying to provide that leadership for the society to sort of take it to that next level. We kind of had that basic level of where we were, and now we wanted to up our conservation footprint. We wanted to grow our membership. We wanted to put more dollars on the landscape, and so it's providing those different things. And like you said, it's finding new sponsors, new donors. There's a few things in this past year that I've been able to accomplish that are pretty exciting for me. So one of the things that we've tried to do for over a decade now was to find a charitable solution for the Wild Sheep Society of BC. We made a couple different attempts and we were unsuccessful. And so that was one of the mandates, was to find a charitable solution for the society. So through working with our leadership here in the society, there was a new entity that was created that we work closely with the Mountain Wildlife Conservation Society. It's a charitable organization, and its mandate is to look after wild sheep and look after mountain species, but generally, and then wild sheep specifically. And so we created this new charity. I was a part of that team that created that. It's a separate entity from the Wild Sheep Society BC, but we work very closely with the Wild Sheep Society BC, and it's an opportunity for us to have a charitable venue. So, setting that up was one of the things that I worked on this past year. There's a whole bunch of other things, like we said, developing these new partnerships, conservation partnerships. We've got 6 conservation partners that we work with now, and they're kind of our flagship partners that really make a big difference for wild sheep in the province. So that's a big thing that I work on. And then, just even
there for what, just for the listeners at home, what would warrant someone becoming a conservation partner? What makes that class?
So basically, our conservation partner is our flagship partner, and monetarily, it's basically a $20,000 yearly contribution is what it is. So, and there, if we look, for example, our first conservation partner was Sitka Gear. So they've given us over $20,000 a year for the last 5 years now. And of course, we use that for our raffles and a whole bunch of other fundraising initiatives. And it's had significant impact for our wild sheep conservation efforts in the province. So it's truly a step above. It's a very high level of sponsorship. And of course, they get all the benefits of the promotion and a whole bunch of other things that go along with it. But our conservation partners are really truly making a difference for wild sheep in the province. And and we always go back to Sitka Gear. That first agreement that we had with them, they've been there now for the 5 years and just been great partners with us. And now we're fortunate enough to have 6 different conservation partners. So we got Sitka Gear, Stone Glacier, we've got Gunworks, Precision Optics, Swarovski, and Stone Glacier. So we got the 6 partners that are there, and so that that's at least $120,000 a year that they're donating directly to us in either cash or merchandise, and it really is making a difference on the landscape.
Yeah, and part of your job is chasing those guys and maintaining those relationships. And you brought in, how many did you bring in this year? You brought in a few new guys this year.
Yeah, there were a few new guys. I think I said Stone Glacier twice, and Yeti was the other one. So I think I unfortunately said Stone Glacier twice, but so basically it's building those relationships, and I think that's one of the keys. Some people say, well, why do we have a paid CEO? I've heard that question before, and I think that's a valid question. And kind of my answer to that is, we need that consistency. Directors come and go, right? How many directors have come and gone off the board over the years? And to build relationships with 6 different companies and get to know 6 different, individuals. And of course, their people come and go. My relationship with a number of these conservation partners over the years, the individuals have changed there. So you have this handoff, and you're making new relationships and building new partnerships with these people and getting them to trust you, believe in our mission, to see what we're doing on the landscape. So that all takes a ton of effort, obviously, right? And so building those relationships, but of course that's a small part of what I do, but that is one of the things that I do. But I guess, for somebody that does say, well, why do we have a paid position? Why do we have Kyle, on a salary and I'm a contractor, but why do we have that individual there? As an interest, I just looked at our trial balance year to year. So I started in October of last year, October 1st, and year to year, this was from July of last year, we're $500,000 over and above where we were the previous year. So I can tell you, I certainly don't make that kind of money. So, it's significant inroads we're making for conservation. Just another small, tiny aside, but interesting, we also are negotiating contracts. So one example is we have our online gaming stuff, and we've grown our online gaming platform significantly over the last 10 years. But there's a fee for that. Well, I recently was part of the team that renegotiated that contract, and that was a $26,000 savings by renegotiating that contract. So, what do I do? Well, that's what I do. Our volunteers don't have the capacity to go and negotiate these contracts, to build these relationships. So, I guess anyone that says, well, what do you do? That's what I do. And I think I certainly, when we talk about wages and what I'm getting in comparison to what I'm bringing in, I'd be more than happy to sit down with anyone that questions that, just to show them. And it's just, I don't even have to defend it. I just show them a piece of paper and like, this is some of the things I've worked on. This is what I'm making. And certainly you can see that it pays for itself and then some. So,
yeah. Now, when it comes to the government, your location kind of helps us out with that. So you're the guy, you're the face that's going down to Parliament and having the meetings or hitting on the Zooms, and it's basically that, because we don't as the volunteers, we all have day jobs, and this is your day job. So what's that been like, kind of leading the role, heading to government and having to go to all these meetings? And that's a big part of what you do, is maintain those relationships and try to get what's right for wildlife from them.
Yeah, absolutely. So because I'm in a paid position now, I'm actually, quote, a paid lobbyist, so I'm a lobbyist as well. So that's my part of my, I guess, job responsibility. And before, when I was volunteering, so there's three of us that would serve on what's called FATAT, which is the Provincial Hunting and Trapping Advisory Team. So that's a group of us that sit here in Victoria. It consists of a number of stakeholders, but the Wild Sheep Society BC is one, GeoABC, BC Wildlife Federation, BC Trappers Association, and others. And so, we provide input and guidance on, regulation changes and that sort of stuff when the government decides that they are willing to engage us on. Not everything goes through us, but some of the things do. So, we were all volunteering for that. Myself, Chris Barker, and David Heitzman were the three representatives. But again, we all have day jobs, right? So, if I'm over on the other side of the world, Chris is on a construction site somewhere, David's doing, busy with his trucking business, he's off on business. So we don't have a representative there. And again, this is something we have to take seriously. We're sitting on, this is a privilege to sit on that committee, to sit on the Provincial Hunting Trapping Advisory Team Committee. And there's a lot of organizations that are fighting for that, trying to get that right to do that. And, it was hard for us just to get individuals there. So, now I can attend every one of those meetings. Like, that is a mandate. I have to be there for those meetings and other ones too, right? So, we meet with the ministers. We recently had a meeting with the Liberal caucus. I think there was 14 Liberal MLAs that showed up for that. We meet with Minister Popham quite regularly. So, yeah, and this is all important work. And part of that is that consistency, getting them to know your name, to recognize you when you get in a room, so that when something happens, when things start going south, there's a domestic ag issue, or, something comes up, you can call that individual or text them and say, hey, and we know how that stuff works. It's not what you know, it's who you know, right? So, it's an important part of what we do, and something I enjoy. I like building these relationships with these elected officials, and some are non-elected too. A lot of them are bureaucrats as well, right? So having access to the director of wildlife, having that conversation, calling them up and saying, "Hey, I've got an issue here. We want you to address this," or and again, we don't always get what we want, but at least getting there and having that conversation is an important piece. If you can't get to them, if you can't have access to those elected officials, then you got nothing, right?
Yeah, for sure. And then your less glamorous jobs that we task you with is your party planning skills. You're you're one of the folks behind every single convention, in-person meet. You're on the fundraising. I think you're on every committee now, and you're just rocking and rolling and keeping that ball rolling. And the planning, as much as we like to say it's not that much, your planning has for the in-person stuff is quite a heavy workload as well.
Yeah, and it's been a weird one, right, with COVID and all these cancellations and trying to, and I think that's one of the things where, again, going back to advocating for, me being in this paid position, is that when things like COVID happens, when they shut down your only fundraiser, back in the old days, and that, that's the one thing that our membership has to keep in mind is, back in the day, we had the Kamloops Convention, and that was it. There was no raffles. There was no gaming. There was no Northern. There was no Jurassic. There was no pub nights. There was one thing, and it was the Kamloops Convention, and that was it. There was nothing else. So, if we'd been relying on that this last 2 years, how much would you be spending on wildlife? And that's me holding a big fat goose egg, because there'd be nothing. There'd be no revenue. There's nothing. So, I think that's one of the things of, with this change, this paid position, it allowed us, now we have to keep the business going. So when COVID hit, we're like, okay, we're going to have to pivot. We're going to have to make decisions here. How are we going to, monetize things? How are we going to keep things going? Because now we've created this monster of putting $250,000 a year on the ground for wildlife. How do you stop that? How do we just call up the provincial wildlife biologist and say, for the Fraser River project this year, you get nothing. It doesn't work, right? They need that money more than ever, right? And they've come to rely on us as a funding source, and for our leadership too. There's no question that the work that our projects team and our board does for these different projects is pivotal. Like they look to us for our leadership, and of course we play a monetary role. We bring funding, but we bring funding partners. We bring the support they need. We advocate for these projects. We meet with ministry staff, with elected officials, and so yeah, it's a big part of what we do. And yeah, these. The ability to adapt quickly and sort of, evolve during these weird times like COVID has been pretty important. And, but again, that's our board. Our board is willing and ready and to roll up their sleeves, pivot, make the change. And of course, I'd be remiss if I didn't recognize the great work that Mike Survey does. He's working there day in and day out. I work side by side with Mike, and just trying to carry out the wishes that the board sets for us and keep things going, because we've kind of created this monster now. We've got this huge funding mechanism that we were able to support at $250,000 plus a year. And if we're not doing things, if we're not putting on events, then we're in trouble, right? So we always got to be, we're always mindful of that, trying to keep things going. And unfortunately, we've got the support now of all our board and our volunteers that we can do this. We can do, you look at what the guys do up north, the Northern Fundraiser, just knock it out of the park. You look at Jurassic, you look at Kamloops, you look at our raffle program. Joe Humphreys heads up our raffle program. And I just looked at the numbers before the podcast here tonight, and we got about $650 on the books for raffles this year. $650,000. That's a lot of money. And that's Joe's purview, right? So it's pretty cool. All the different, individuals and all the, everyone's kind of got their own little piece of the pie that they're growing, they're tending to, or their piece of the garden. And that's why I think we've been so successful, is there's so many people that really care and making a big difference.
Yeah, I think it's a big testament to everybody that we work with, and guys like you. When COVID hit, and you're already in Kamloops, and you're sitting there at the convention, everything's set to go, and then you get that ball dropped on you. And I wasn't on the board yet, but I was on my way up, and I got the phone call to turn around, and I'm like, I'm still going. But you guys that were there, you lead up to it, however many months of planning that takes, and nonstop, day and night going, and then you get that ball dropped on you by the government, and you have to make that decision, in the 23rd hour. We're canceling our biggest cash cow of the year. It's like, what was that like for you? Like, I know what it was like for me, and I wasn't even the guy. I wasn't involved at that point.
Buddy, it was bloody scary, because the other side of it is, there's a huge commitment. You got this hotel that you rent. Our fees at the coast and every year are north of $50,000 a year, right? So, we didn't have COVID insurance. There wasn't such a thing. There's this thing called force majeure, which wouldn't hold up. There was no COVID clause. So, not only were we gutted because our members were coming. Shockey was coming as our keynote. We got Jim Shockey coming as our keynote. That in itself, like, Jim Shockey's going to be there, right? So right there. But then, all our members were up there. Like, guys and gals were showing up. We were seeing them there. They came up the night before. They're up there on the Thursday night for the Friday show. They were spending the weekend. They'd spent money. They'd taken time off their jobs. And, we sat there and, is there any way that we can do this without breaking the law, and then, and at the end of the day, we couldn't. It's a provincial health order. There was no option there. So it was heartbreaking. It was something that it was one of the hardest decisions we'd had to make at the time. And then the other side of it is that where are we going to come out of this financially? Like, what are we going to owe? Now, gratefully, the coast was very reasonable. They basically made us cover their hard costs. So, anything, if they'd rented equipment or they'd bought food, we had to cover that. Everything else, they just washed it. So the coast was amazing. And you know what? Our membership, again, I say it over and over and over. I'm sure you guys get tired of it, but our membership is insane because I can't remember what our fees were, but, we just said that we're going to refund everybody. And I can't tell you how many people, but I can tell you it was dozens and dozens and dozens of people to say, we're donating it back. And we came out further ahead from donations for that than the cost owing to the coast. So we were cash positive. It certainly wasn't going to put any wild sheep on the ground, but we certainly didn't go backwards. And we didn't ask our membership to do that. They just did it. And to me, that's a testament of our membership. They care about our mission. They care about what we do. And, it was humbling to see that. For weeks afterwards, I was just in awe at how generous our membership was and the support they gave us.
Yeah, it was a pretty unreal moment, just talking to people from the society, members, and we all kind of said the same thing. It's like, oh, we've already dedicated that money, turn it around, just give it back, and the society can keep it and do something good, because it seemed like a lot of the membership realized this is going to be devastating for conservation from our end of things, for sure.
Yeah, absolutely phenomenal.
Yeah, I was sitting in that room when the call was made, because remember I was vice chair of communications and going, okay, the order's coming out, and we're watching it and watching the ticker, and I was like, oh damn. Had told Kyle, I'm like, they just closed it, and the look on his face was, you're kidding me. No, here. And then we went up to the hospitality suite and had the meeting, and you could just feel the disappointment in the room. It was just like, when you get that perfect lung shot on a moose and the air comes out, it was the same sort of thing. Just watch everybody deflate. And then, as Kyle said, over the next week or two, when we started putting out the messaging going, hey, what do you guys want with your funds? And 50, 60, 70, 80% of people were going, no, keep it. It was amazing. It really was. And that saved 2020 for us. It really, truly did. So, yeah, onward to better things. This 2023 is going to be amazing. All right. I'm looking to Sheep Show
2023 Kamloops. You guys better be there.
Oh, I'm booking already. I'm booking in end of September for my flight for Sheep Show.
Yeah. So let's we're running long on time here, so let's get into some hunting stories to end this off there, Kyle. Let's take us on your first sheep hunt that sucked you into this rabbit hole of a world we live in.
Yeah, and again, that's why a lot of us are here, right? We just have a love to be in the mountains with those majestic creatures, and so my first sheep hunt, it was a fly-in, and again, no expectation, no idea what to expect, and I have to say I learned a lot on that first sheep hunt. I heard a lot. I was miserable a lot. And I was definitely hooked. But opening morning, we woke up and we were on a band of 8 rams, and we were fortunate enough to harvest one of those. I think there was only the one legal ram in that herd, and Mike had spotted him. So we have this rule: whoever spots him gets to shoot him. So he had first right of refusal, and shot a nice ram. He was beautiful, and it was just, to be part of that was just unbelievable. And just to get to see sheep on a sheep hunt, to me, is a success. To harvest one is unbelievable. And we thought, okay, well, we got our sheep. I didn't even care. I didn't even feel like I wanted to hunt. I wanted to go sit at the lake, and we couldn't drink beer because we didn't have beer with us. But just rest on our laurels and enjoy Mike's ram and be happy. And Mike's like, we are not stopping until you get your ram. So we hiked up another drainage, and actually went completely different, 180 degrees the opposite direction. And I think on about day 6, interesting enough, we climbed up into this this high area and kind of tucked ourselves into a little shelf, and we just got set up, started glassing, and I'm glassing, and Mike, I hear him, he goes, Kyle, don't move and don't say anything, but I'm pretty sure there's a legal ram to your right. And I'm like, okay. And he goes, just duck down. And I'm like, well, how far? And he goes, 75 yards. I'm like, what? And he's like, just duck down and back behind this knoll with me. So I backed down, and so this ram had bedded right at the top, like you said, and you've seen it. I'm sure, Greg, you've been in the mountains, and they, they find that high point, the precipice, and they get up on top, and they, that's where they sit. That's their safe point. They got escape terrain. So, Mike's coaching this 2-year-old kid that has no idea what he's doing. He's like, "Get your butt down." He goes, "Put your arms down." He goes, No, crawl. Like I was, and so anyway, and he was super patient, but he's like, "You got to stop faffing around here. There's a ram there, and you gotta concentrate. Get yourself together." And I was just kind of a 2-year-old. I didn't know what I was doing, so I'd never hunted like that in the mountains. So anyway, I crawl up, and he goes, "Just make sure you're happy that he's legal." And of course, I look at him, and he's tipped out, and just beautiful ram. And yes, he was 75 yards, and I was laying there prone, and one shot, harvested him, shot in the lungs, and he just kind of tipped over. It was like he was sleeping. And we walked up to him. He was 13 years old. I think he grossed about 164, and just a beautiful ram. And I always joke that we baited that one in. We were sitting there, and he came and bedded on top of us. It was just the craziest thing. And just but again, sheep hunting is not. There's great sheep hunters that kill sheep, and no disrespect to them, but there's an element of luck, and I had some luck that year. So. Yeah, we were pretty excited about that one, and of course that got me hooked. So
awesome, and no slouch for the first one either. A 13-year-old ram, you can't go wrong with that. Now you missed an important part of that story with Doll, Stones, Rocky, Callie. What'd you get?
Yeah, it was a BC Stone sheep.
Beautiful.
So awesome. It was humbling.
Yeah. Oh, that's good. That's good. Let's now we all mountain hunters. We all have a story that sends shivers down your spine when you think about it. What's your one story where it's like, I shouldn't be here anymore? What was the scariest moment for you on the mountains? So I can think of one situation I put you in before. So I just
that there's one, but it's also the stupidest thing I've ever done. So I can't tell that story, right?
Yeah.
No, it is probably the stupidest thing I've ever done. So, of course, mountain hunting, it takes some getting used to, right? And there, I still learn so much on every trip, right? There's so much I learn. Even, I'm always learning tips and tricks. Joe Appel was up at the Kamloops for our mountain mentorship event, and I just sat there and took notes for half an hour. I'm like, I thought with Joe there I'd learn something. I knew I would learn something, right? But literally for half an hour, I'm like, oh, I used this trick and I used that trick. And I'm like, oh my goodness, like where have I been for the last 20 or whatever, 10 years, right? So, but anyway, I was on a stone trip. It was a fly in. We were in this hanging valley. We had a tent set up, and we'd been there for 3-4 nights. And we didn't see any sign of bear. There was no tracks. There was no scat. There was nothing, right? And so we had our tent set up in the trees, and then we'd walk down to this little creek, and you get it by this creek. You couldn't, because we were in the trees, you couldn't glass from the trees, but if you got down to the creek, there was enough of clearing, you could go up and you could glass quite a bit of stuff. It was a pretty good spot. So, we'd done this, 3 or 4 times, and the one night we go down there and we're glassing, and now for some reason, here we are in the mountains, we left our rifles at our tent, which are like 200 yards away or 300 yards away, but we didn't bring our rifles. And we're sheep hunting, we're in bear country, but anyway, the stupidest thing you've ever done, and the scariest thing you've ever done, that was me. So anyway, we're standing there, and we're just glassing, and all of a sudden I hear this sploosh, 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 sploosh. And I'm like, what's that? And I kind of look, Mike's still standing beside me. And both at the same time, Mike and I look at each other, and we're like an epiphany, right? And we see this grizzly walking down the creek, maybe 12 yards away from us. And Mike looks at me, and he puts his finger up, the shush sign. And I'm like, yeah, no doubt, buddy. And the grizz walks by, and there's no wind, I guess, and doesn't notice us. And it's a pretty young grizz, and walks past us. I'd say the closest point he gets to is about 8 yards, but he walks past, and then he kind of curls around like in the creek, walking in the creek, and then he looks at us, and I guess he probably winded us, and he stands up on his back feet, and he just looks at us, and he's staring at Mike and I kind of back up, and I grab some hiking poles. I don't know what I'm going to do with those, but and Mike is just standing there with his binoculars, and yeah, he just stares at us, and then he just spins and he takes off, and that was it. But that was the dumbest thing I've ever done, and that was the scariest thing that's ever happened to me. And fortunately, he was in a good mood that day, because if he decided otherwise, it would have been really ugly for the two of us. So, wasn't smart.
That's when you scurry back to the tent for the wardrobe change. And
well, so Mike runs back. He's like, okay, I'm going to run back to the tent, get the rifle. I'm like, yeah, that's probably a good idea. So he takes off. He goes into camp and unzips the tent, and all of a sudden here's whoo, 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 and there's another bear in the trees. So tell me how that works. Anyway, he grabs the rifle, and he knows with a grizz you're not supposed to run, right? He's just like, he just turned and he just ran through the trees, and he's like, I don't care, I'm going to die by Kyle. And he runs back, and then of course we come back to the tent, half an hour later as the sun's setting or whatever, and there was no sign of the bear. But that's the thing. It comes down to respect, right? Respect for the mountains, respect for wildlife, and you just let your guard down for half a second, and it could have easily been the end for us, right? Pretty dumb on my part.
Yeah, we've all made those mistakes. I've definitely walked away from the tent a couple of times without a gun and thought, oh, that was dumb. So you're not alone.
Oh yeah, a couple times this year. Well, last September.
Yeah. So you got any plans coming up here, Kyle?
Yeah. So that's the one cool thing is I am going to take off here, and I'm going to go into sheep country, hopefully chase some sheep, and so taking off early September and for 2-week fly-in, and really excited about it. Just for me, that always grounds me. I just get in the mountains, and I don't even have to see sheep. And I have done that. I've been on. Well, I don't know if I've been on a sheep hunt, never seen a sheep, but I've never seen a legal ram in some cases. And just getting out there, for me, that's the reset that I need for the year. I just get out there and I feel recharged. And, the success for me is seeing some sheep. And if you happen to get on some legal rams and, wow, you're able to harvest one, that's amazing. But just to get out there is the big reset for me. And, can't wait. Like, so stoked for it.
Nothing reminds you that you're just a blip on this earth and that plane flying away, and you're looking around going, all right, it's me and Mother Nature. So
here we go. Yeah.
Well, that was
absolutely
an awesome podcast, Kyle, and I'm sure everybody's got a little bit more look into your world, and we're happy that you're in that CEO role doing this full time and doing all the heavy lifting for us. So we just ride on your coattails in the background. So we appreciate everything you do, man, for sure.
That's awesome, man. And I guess that's the one thing for me being in this position is that I'm just surrounded by people all the time that are so passionate, so driven, and just give so much of their time, treasure, and talent. And it's right from the the senior leadership on our board of directors, but even our newest members. Just everyone from there right in between, and everyone's just giving it so much. And to be part of that team it's pretty rewarding. And I just feel humbled all the time when I look around that the time people give, the donations, the support, volunteerism, it's absolutely phenomenal. And it's just I've never been with a team like this, and it's definitely the dream team for sure.
So we calling her there, boys? That's we let them ramble on a little too long, or
you did let me ramble too long.
Are we done now?
Sorry.
I can wake up now.